Hello everyone, my name is Kelly Johnson and I'm a Curriculum Officer at NCFE. My background is vocational education and I have 15 years of experience of working in the FE sector in various roles including a teacher, a curriculum leader and a curriculum manager. I have educated young people from level 1 to foundation degree level, including A levels. My role is to support centres through the planning, onboarding and CPD processes for the NCFE and cash qualifications, but in particular the VCERT qualifications with a focus on promoting and advancing learning. You're very welcome to this webinar, and in today's session we will examine external assessment preparation and revision strategies in the subject area of art and design. The plan for this webinar is to firstly provide you with an overview of the external assessment, including the assessment objectives and weighting, the types of questions, and grading. I'll describe the external assessment regulations, including the timetable, specific instructions, and the process that is available for access arrangements and special considerations. I'll then explain the resources and support that are available to you and your centre. I'll also explain some of the revision strategies and tools that are available, but by all means, this is not an exhaustive list. And lastly, there will be an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have, which will be answered after the webinar. So I'll begin now by taking a closer look at Unit 1, which is the external assessment. Before I do, I would just like to explain our approach to awarding in 2021-2022. The technical award qualifications have an external assessment that must be on a set date and time and at your centre. External assessments will go ahead in the academic year of 21-22 unless public health measures deteriorate, in which case this will be reviewed by the government. Previously, where assessments were timetabled for a set date and time, we have updated our assessment variation process to allow centres to use additional test centre locations. Where possible, we have now implemented further adaptations and include added additional assessment opportunities to support learners. So in 2021 to 2022, learners will be permitted up to 2 retake opportunities for the external assessments for all the technical award qualifications. So they will have an external assessment opportunity in each exam series, that is in the autumn, which is November, spring, which is March, and then the additional window in the summer. And these dates are confirmed in the external assessment timetable. Also, the provision of advance notification of test topics where possible. This will support with the preparation for assessment and allow centres to manage the impact of learning loss in preparing for the external assessment. Although please do note we are still waiting for confirmation of details from Ofqual and the DFE on whether this adaptation can be implemented or not. And please do keep your eye out for our customer newsletter, where once we have that confirmation, it will be communicated to your centres. Assessment opportunities where learners have received results based on either teacher assessed grades and tags and centre assessed grades, CAGs, do not count towards these retake opportunities. For further information, please do see our updated external assessment timetable guide, which is available on our website on the link shown on the screen. So when it's business as usual, the external assessment will be in the form of a written external examination, which will assess the learner's knowledge and understanding of the content from Unit 1. The Level 1/2 Technical Award in Art and Design covers 5 assessment objectives. The first 3 are about using and demonstrating knowledge and understanding, and it is these that will be in the external assessment. A variety of assessment styles will be used, including multiple choice, short answer, and extended response questions. This will enable learners to demonstrate their breadth of knowledge and understanding of the subject and ensure achievement at the appropriate level, including stretch and challenge. Questions will be written in plain English and in a way that is supportive and accessible to all learners of all abilities. As far as possible, real-world scenarios and contexts which are relevant to the sector will be used. And this is to engage and stimulate learners under examination conditions and to facilitate the drawing out of a wide range of knowledge and skills which they have developed throughout their learning. All questions will be compulsory, with available marks clearly identified. The written external assessment has been carefully constructed following a rigorous quality control process to ensure that the assessment is valid. And when it is business as usual, there is only one resit opportunity permitted. Unit 1 has 48 guided learning hours and the external assessment lasts an hour and a half. It has a total of 80 marks and there are external assessment opportunities in November and March of each year. And the reason for this is because there is usually only one resit opportunity available. Whichever external assessment they perform better in is the grade that counts towards their final grade. And you will need to ensure your learners are registered on the qualification before they can be booked onto the external assessment. The external assessment timetable contains key information such as the date and time of the external assessment and the expected results release date. It will also tell you the cut-off date for booking for your learners on the external assessment, and this is usually 2 weeks before the external assessment itself. Please note there are late fees that can be incurred if learners are registered late. For 21-22, learners will be permitted, as I've already said, up to 2 retake opportunities for the external assessments for all the technical award qualifications, including art and design, and we have added these additional assessment opportunities in the external assessment timetable. For art and design, 28% of the marks in the external assessment are for recalling and showing knowledge and understanding, and the higher order thinking of analysis and evaluation will account for 31% of the marks. This allows the assessment to cover both level 1 and level 2 learners, and the style of questions is a mix of short answer, multiple choice, and longer response answers. So as in the previous slide, as I've said, there are 3 main types of questions on the external assessment, and where possible, they have been set within an art and design context with real-world case studies and scenarios. The first type of question is multiple choice, and they are usually 1 or 2 marks. Multiple choice questions cover assessment objective 1, like this one from art and design, on which country did the Expressionism art movement first emerge. The second type of question is short answer, and they are usually around 2 to 6 marks. Short answer questions, such as this example, ask learners to analyse the way this artist uses colour, line and shape. And the third type of question is extended response. Extended response questions are usually worth 6 marks or more. This example is a 12-mark question that asks for an evaluation on how the work of at least 2 different artists provides commentary about a social issue or situation. The look of the external assessment paper will contain learner instructions and learner information. Also, how many marks the question is worth, so 6 in this case. They are written in plain English as much as possible to ensure it's accessible by the learners. And bolding is used to highlight important aspects such as command verbs and other key words, like this example where to is bolded. Key or command words are used in terms of question structure and expectation. For example, identify is a single word or short response. Describe is a short sentence response and so on. And explain is a response with expansion, etc. For the extended response questions, the marking is laid out in bandings or levels. In each banding, the learners need to demonstrate all 3 of the assessment objectives to be successful. So Band 1 needs assessment objective 1, 2 and 3, which are shown, and Band 2 needs assessment objective 1, 2 and 3 as well, but more detail. And Band 3 is the highest level, so the assessment objectives must be strongly demonstrated. On this slide is a generic example, and if this was a 9-mark question, then Level 1 or Band 1 would be worth 1 to 3 marks. Level 2 or Band 2 would be 4 to 6 marks, and Level 3 or Band 3 would be 7 to 9 marks. In Band 1, for Assessment Objective 1, learners must recall and communicate basic art and design knowledge and understanding, and subject-specific terminology would be basic and inconsistent. Whereas in Band 3, for Assessment Objective 1, learners must recall and communicate a wide range of comprehensive art and design knowledge and understanding. And subject-specific terminology is used accurately and consistently throughout. The same principle is applied for each assessment objective and the banding that can be given to determine the marks awarded. On this slide, we'll have a look at grading of the external assessment. The Uniform Mark Scale is a method used to standardise the marking of papers across multiple external assessment windows by converting the raw mark out of 80 into a UMS score. The final grade in the external assessment is determined by converting the raw mark into a maximum UMS of 160. A minimum of 24 UMS is needed to get a level 1 pass, and a minimum of a level 1 pass is required in both the external and synoptic project to obtain an overall grade. Next, I'd like to talk you through the external assessment regulations. On QualHub, there are 4 different tabs at the top of the page. And in the Policies and Documents tab, this is where you'll find key documents including the assessment regulations. The regulations in this section are for the internal and external assessments. We are a member of the Joint Council for Qualifications, or JCQ, but for 2021-22, we are only partially aligned to their policies and processes concerning external assessment regulations. For the external assessment, there is a document called the Regulation for the Conduct of External Assessment. This is a set of generic instructions regarding preparing for the external assessment, administering the assessment, and what to do after the assessment has been completed. It includes information like the safe and secure storage of the assessment papers, the start and end time of assessments, which can be changed by 30 minutes and the steps needed if you need more time, the invigilation of the external assessment, what the invigilator should do and how to position the desks, etc. For 2021-22, this document has been closely aligned to the equivalent JCQ instructions for conducting examinations document, but there are still significant differences for some of our qualifications. Therefore, it's best if this document is read by anyone involved with the external assessments, as if there was a concern raised about the conduct of an external assessment, then the quality assurance team would need to investigate. So, the more people that are familiar with these regulations, then the smaller the chances are of that happening. Please note that from 2021-22 onwards, it is our intention to fully align with JCQ in this regard, although given the nature and complexity of some of our qualifications, there may be appendices or annexes with additional information that supersede content within the main document. The next document is the Qualification Specific Instructions for Delivery, or QSID, and it gives specific information for the different qualifications unless reasonable adjustments are in place. For example, if the assessment needs to be invigilated or supervised, if the use of the internet is permitted, and so on. For all subject areas in the Level 1/2 Technical Award vCert, the same rules apply, and these are: the external assessment papers will be delivered and securely returned to us, and there is no online option available. The external assessment lasts an hour and a half and is on a set day and time. The learners don't need the internet or computer access to complete the external assessment, and learners need a black or blue pen and a ruler, with pencils and calculators being optional. As the external assessment is on a set date and time, it is important to know where the external assessment timetable is. When you click on the Delivery and Learner Support tab, you will find the external assessment timetable, which includes cut-off dates for registering learners and the date for when the results will be available. The other useful section is the forms, which I'll come on to a little bit shortly. You need to have your learners registered before you can book them onto the external assessment. If we look at the external assessment timetable for 2021-23, you will see the cut-off dates for booking your learners onto the external assessment. If you book your learners after this date, then late fees will be incurred. Then there is an assessment date and time, and as I've already mentioned, you can change the start date by 30 minutes, so please do check the regulations. We also have the results release date, which is when you find out how well your learners have done. And again, as already mentioned, this year's learners are permitted up to 2 retake opportunities for the external assessments. So to support your learners further, we've put in place an additional external assessment opportunity in the summer. It is useful to be aware of the form section, and I'm just going to highlight some of the key forms that you may want to use. As I've mentioned earlier, if the external assessment regulations aren't followed, then we need to be informed, which can be done via the malpractice or maladministration forms. If you do miss the cut-off dates, then you will need to complete the late entry form. If any of your learners need extra time, a scribe, etc., then the access arrangements and reasonable adjustments form can be submitted. Although please note that this year, instead of notifying us via form on our website, from September 2021, centres can complete details of any access arrangements and reasonable adjustments at the point of registration in the NCFE portal. Once the relevant details have been submitted, they will stay with the learner across all the qualification registrations and all future external assessment bookings. The request for special considerations is after the assessment has taken place. It is for when some adverse circumstances could have impacted on the learner's ability to demonstrate their usual level of attainment, so for example due to illness or a bereavement. And the request for assessment variation is when you need to vary the assessment from, for example, the published assessment date or the published assessment time, which was beyond the permitted 30 minutes, or change or extend the assessment site from your current approved location. Next, I would like to take a closer look at the resources and the support that are available to you and your centres. The key area for support will be QualHub. QualHub.co.uk will be your primary go-to, where you can search for all our qualifications and access the specification, assessments, teacher materials, regulations and much more. Begin typing your qualification subject area and it will give you a suggested list of qualifications, or you could just type in the qualification code. Using actual assessment material is a good way to make revision effective, and the material that I'm going to show you now is also available free of charge. For every qualification, you will find past or sample exam papers. You will also find the mark schemes, and they will say which assessment objectives are being addressed by the question. Furthermore, the Chief Examiner's report, which can be found in the Assessment Materials tab on QualHub, does provide an insight into how learners have performed nationally on the different questions. For example, which questions had strong answers, which were answered incorrectly, and what were the common errors, which can help to inform your future teaching and revision preparation and planning. We also have past and sample projects which can be accessed, and we have sample learner portfolios. Due to the content crossover with the synoptic project and the external assessment, some of the exemplar portfolios can be reused for revision. So what I'd like to do now is I'd just like to begin looking at the revision strategies that are most effective according to the research. Which one do you think is the most effective? John Dunlowski, a professor of psychology at Kent State University, examined the efficacy of 10 learning strategies from multiple research sources and found that only 2 were shown to be very effective. Active recall and spaced or distributed practice were the only ones that were demonstrated to be effective in a wide array of situations. However, this isn't to say, though, that the other methods aren't effective. It's just that these 2 are the most effective and have the most evidence behind them to support the effectiveness claim. In an example for tests, exams and quizzes, active recall can involve 2 learners, for example, reading and revising a piece of text. The first learner decides to reread the text a second time, but learner 2 decides to quiz themselves on what has already been read. As the research suggests, the second learner who is undertaking active recall will perform better. Furthermore, the research also shows that rereading isn't an effective strategy. The second strategy that has been demonstrated to be very effective is distributed practice instead of massed practice. Massed practice is when the revision is done in one continuous session with little to no breaks, whereas spaced or distributed practice is when the sessions are spread out. For example, If the same length of time is being dedicated to the revision, let's say 3 hours, by spacing the sessions out will have a most positive impact on performance over mass practice. Highlighting was one revision strategy strongly favoured by learners, but in practice doesn't contribute to higher performance. And in Professor Dunlosky's own words, he said, when learners are using a highlighter, they often focus on one concept at a time and are less likely to integrate the information they are reading into a larger whole. However, highlighting can be a good starting point, but it needs to be built upon and active recall added to make it as effective as possible. So overall, not particularly helpful as a revision strategy, but it can certainly be used as a first step towards further study. Now I'd like to show you a few of the strategies and activities that might help boost your learners' external assessment performance. Whilst I talk through the key principles of each strategy or activity, please do use the notes and comment section in your participant session handbook that can be downloaded if you haven't already done so from the handout section, and it will help you reflect on which strategy or activity that you would be interested in trying out and how it could be applied to your daily teaching practice or a key topic or content. One strategy I've used all the time when beginning the external assessment preparation with my learners was to get them to rank their own knowledge and understanding of the key topics of the unit. I will provide an overview of the key topic headings from the unit and then the subtopics, like this example on the art movements from Learning Outcome 1. I would ask them to use a RAG or a red, amber, green rating or a traffic light system first of all on the subtopics, and then provide a RAG rating overall for the main key topics. Then I would ask them to think about an action plan and make a note of some ways that they could improve their RAG rating. I also included a comment section for them to add anything further, like a date to action by, any additional resources they needed, and whether it worked well or not, and if not, why not. Remember though that learners are not often the best judge of their own revision and how effective it may be or not. But by getting learners to rank their own knowledge of their topics being revised, they deploy the important metacognitive strategy of evaluating their learning. Though they will likely to be inaccurate, even over-optimistic in their judgments of their knowledge and learning, but it will still help learners better calibrate their revision and monitor their ongoing progress. You could also teach learners techniques such as mnemonics or acronyms to help them remember difficult information. This ensures that they are less likely to experience cognitive overload, allowing them to move on to higher level thinking. You could use expression or word mnemonics such as Roy G. Biv to remember the colours of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. The same thing could be remembered in a mnemonic sentence such as Richard of York gave battle in vain. Now you may have your own mnemonics or acronyms, but you could also ask your learners to create their own as an activity or strategy to help with their revision. Another way of using active recall is the use of flashcards. In this case, I've got an art and design question, and on the other side is the answer. It would be good to start flashcard production from the beginning of the course. So for example, every week or month or half term, learners are to produce flashcards on what they've learned. They can then use those flashcards as a lesson starter and or plenaries every so often. This way, they will have built up a bank of flashcards by the end of the course, and they will have done some distributed practice by using them in the lessons, and it does take practically zero teaching and planning to implement them. Graphic organisers help us to consciously improve our thinking process. They assist us in organising our thoughts, create connections, think more deeply, and help us visualise processes and procedures. By using a graphic organiser, we can more effectively think about our thinking. And examples of graphic organisers could include mind maps, flowcharts, and spider diagrams. For example, a mind map could be created for the art and design on the aspects of visual language. A large body of evidence shows that peer explanation benefits students' learning. In short, peer teaching or explanation occurs when learners, by design, teach or explain key concepts or topics to other learners. Peer teaching is one of the best ways to master a particular subject. It is a method of teaching where the learner instructs another learner, wherein the former will be the expert and the latter the novice. The learner-teacher can pose a challenging question to learners. Learners then answer the question individually. Learners can work with a partner in the class to discuss their answers, and finally, learners answer the question again. Through the direct interaction between learners, peer teaching promotes active learning as well as the participation within themselves. And there is a saying that to teach is to learn twice, and this method paves the teacher-learner to also revise the topic again. Learner-teachers enhance their own depth of knowledge in the topic by instructing others. And as an example, the first step would be teaching and demonstrating as normal. You would then pair up the learners as you see fit, for example, similar or opposite ability, fixed and growth mindset, male and female, etc. You will have 2 sets of model answers, so each learner in the pair gets a different set. Learners can study their model answer for, say, 5 minutes. The learners then explain the model answer they have and justify why the answer is correct. Or you could even prepare the model answer that contains errors or missing information, and learners have to explain what else is needed. Now you can give the learners their own problem or question to work on. A variation of peer instruction is note-taking pairs. To engage learners in note-taking pairs, periodically interrupts the class to ask learners to compare their notes with those of a classmate. Next, encourage learners to talk about both the content and the format of their notes. Finally, ask for volunteers to show and perhaps even just discuss the merits of different note-taking approaches. The minute test is a technique that I have used for the assessment objective recall type questions, where I would give my learners a set of questions for homework, the 10 questions for example. I would then tell them that next lesson there was going to be a quick starter quiz of just 5 questions, and those 5 questions were on the homework sheet. I'd then display the questions on the board and the learner would answer them in their books and with peer or self-assessment. You could also get your learners to design and create their own quizzes to share amongst the class. And this could be done either on paper or you could use a free online tool such as Quizlet or Hot Potatoes. Another strategy is Just a Minute, that takes the classic radio game and adapts it to almost any topic, test, or examination revision term. Put simply, learners have to talk for a minute on a given topic or term. There's no pauses and no hesitations. Slips or repetitions or micro pauses lose a life, and 3 strikes and you're out. This strategy harnesses the self-explanation effect. And in short, if you can elaborate on a topic and explain it well, you have retrieved it from memory, which is also a good revision act, as well as likely to consolidate it too. Another strategy can include a 6x6 grid. In each square, you can write a question or get learners to produce one of their own. Then a learner rolls the dice to get 2 numbers, a number of the row and a number for the column, and learners have to answer that question. Alternatively, you could have keywords on each square and learners have to come up with a definition or a question for that word. Or they can roll in order to have 2 words and they need to link them together, building in some self-explanation as mentioned previously as a promising technique. With this particular activity, there are a wide range of options available on adapting this activity. I highly recommend using past papers for revision with your learners, and it is an effective active recall method. They help learners to become familiar with the structure of the paper and the language they use. Learners will probably already be used to the vocabulary from learning in the classroom, but it's good to get themselves familiarised with the past papers so they know how everything is laid out, and on the actual day of the exam, they won't be too stressed. In some external assessments, some extra information might be printed in the paper, for example, equations for the sciences and mathematics. Again, it is good to know where these will be in the paper if they are included. Once you've done a couple of past papers, you know the layout of the questions. And generally the paper will start with the lower mark questions and work up. But it's good to know that so you don't write an essay long answer for a 2-mark question and not have enough time for the higher mark questions later in the paper. It's best for learners to practice completing the past paper under external assessment conditions. The benefits of completing the paper this way is that they can work out how much time they will have for each question. Past papers can also be completed at home in a quiet space, and they could ask a parent, a sibling or a friend to act as an invigilator and tell them how much time they have left. On our website, you can download a mark scheme and a chief examiner's report for each of the past papers. This way, you or the learner can mark the work and see where the marks would lie and what grade they would get. Learners will also understand the different types of answers that are required and can use this in the structure of their answers. Using the mark scheme, learners can refine their answering skills and ultimately save time in the external assessment. Furthermore, if learners' revision notes are in bullet points, then completing past papers is a good way to practice putting that information that they have learnt into paragraphs, because being able to communicate their knowledge clearly is just as important as knowing the knowledge itself. Once the paper has been completed, it will need to be marked. Learners can also mark their own work using the mark scheme and then analyse their result, or they can ask a peer to do this. Teaching your learner to carefully analyse the breakdown of an external assessment question is a vital skill. I've had my learners underline, circle or highlight the context or scenario of a question to ensure that they are referring to each section accurately. So in this question, it is about 2 artists in the realism art movement. I would also get them to highlight the key ask of the question. So for this example, what content or knowledge do they need to demonstrate, such as the contextual factors of the realism art movement, and the command words to ensure that they are fully answering the question. So in this question, it would be the identifying and evaluating. Finally, have your learners write key notes around the question to remind them what they need to include before fully organising their thoughts on the page. External assessment wrappers are worksheets containing reflective questions that help learners to think about their performance in a test or external assessment. You could give them to your learners both before and after they receive their results and feedback. The worksheets can be given out before they receive their feedback and should ask them to think about how they're prepared for the external assessment, for example, which study strategies they used. Those given out after the feedback should make the learner reflect on the mistakes they made and how they could prepare differently to ensure greater success in the future, making them more strategic learners. Wrappers work because they are time efficient. Learners are doing the task anyway. It only adds a few minutes to any given task. Metacognition practice is built into that task. Learners are self-monitoring in context, and feedback on accuracy can be built in, and feedback is immediate. Support can gradually be faded out, and it has been noted that just in 3 lessons, most learners are successful on their own. And this just goes to show that minor interventions can significantly change behaviour. And as a side note, you could also adapt and use this method as an assignment wrapper for the Synoptic project. David Newland in 2013 said exemplars can provide information, skills, content and messages in a way that no other teaching methodology can. Exemplars are a very useful way in which students can be helped to gain a firm understanding in a concrete, contextual and non-threatening fashion of exactly what is required of them in order to succeed to their desired level of achievement. There are many different types of feedback that teachers can provide to their students, and a common one being model answers or exemplars. A model answer is an ideal response to a question. It is an example of what would receive full marks and helps teachers demonstrate to students how to include the key elements of a topic into an answer. Model answers are typically used so that students can compare their own work to them and assess their strengths and areas for development. This means that teachers don't have to provide individual feedback. But of course, although model answers can definitely be helpful, it is much more beneficial when coupled with personal feedback from the teacher. They can act as a useful reference point for students when they are writing essays or demonstrating the ideal layout, format and content, and can help students with their structure. However, specific comments tailored to a student's work will guide them to make the necessary changes to succeed in the future. Students also may find it easier to revise from model answers. So if a student is struggling when it comes to the external assessment preparation, model feedback can be a particularly useful revision resource. This further indicates that combining the strengths of both types of feedback is an effective way to make the most of a student's learning process. So for art and design, although NCFE are unable to offer any model answers at this time, the teacher or the learner can create their own model answers, such as this example that is a learner sample portfolio that has been graded as a distinction. Like I explained on the previous slide, sample portfolios are another example of active recall, and it can also include higher order thinking skills with learners evaluating and justifying their decisions. In this example, we have learner evidence where learners are to submit an art and design proposal and create a response to realise intentions for a minimum of 2 pieces of art and design work that cover a minimum of 2 disciplines in response to the theme of motion. The learners have been asked that all proposals will have referenced Italian futurism in some aspect of their creative journey. You could get the learners to analyse that section of the task or as a whole and get them to decide what is good, what needs improvement, maybe even what grade they would give it and what they would add to improve that model answer. Learners could then swap their evaluations with each other, comparing. As art and design has a bigger focus on apply over recall, you could use this 4-quadrant as a revision activity. In the centre, you can place an image, and in each quadrant, you place a question or a command word. In this case, learners have to begin with a lower order thinking activity, leading to the higher order thinking. So for example, in the first box or quadrant, they need to describe what they can see. Then, analyse the use of colour, shape and tone, etc. The third quadrant is what the artist is wanting to convey, and the fourth and final quadrant is an opportunity for them to justify their decision or give an overall judgment. A rubric is a performance-based assessment tool. Teachers often use rubrics to gather information about their learners' progress on a particular assignment or skill. Simple rubrics allows learners to understand what is required in an assignment, how it will be graded, and how well they are progressing towards proficiency. Rubrics can be both formative and summative assessment tools for evaluating written work, projects, oral presentations, or any other class assignments. To help learners address these types of questions, you can then produce checklists for the learners to use. This could also help if you have learners peer or self-assessing. As the same generic statements are present on the mark scheme for the different assessment objectives, you can use them and make them more learner-friendly. You can also include sections after each statement for comments to be included too if needed. Now I'd like to finish off by looking at some of the technological tools that you might find useful for revision with your learners. During the course of lockdown and home learning, many of you, I'm sure, have become more familiar with Google Docs and Google Forms. I'm going to go through one way of using it to create quizzes or even homework activities. When you start a new form, you can choose what type it is from multiple choice, checkbox, drop-down menu and more. And if you click on the Settings tab, you can choose to make it a quiz, whether they see their results immediately or later, and whether they can see the correct answer and so on. One option for art and design is to use the 1-mark questions from the sample and past papers that we have available on the subject page on QualHub, or you can just create your own questions. You then copy it into the form and select the correct answer. And as feedback is vital for learner achievement, you can add feedback to the quiz. This will allow you to add feedback for incorrect answers as well as the correct answer. Padlet.com can be best described as an online bullet board. You can choose from many different layouts. The shelf layout could be useful if you want to put images, links, videos, and more into different categories or headings. With a free account, you can make up to 3 Padlets. In art and design, you could start a task for learners to list the materials, equipment, and techniques used in different art disciplines, and then use this as a basis for further discussion and question and answer. You could use Padlet for the upload of ongoing learner work, allowing for collaboration and feedback. Learners can have discussions on there, or you could just get them to include links to their Google form quizzes that you had them make, or just ask the learners to make their own Padlets and share it with you. EdPuzzle is a website that allows you to add content to online videos. You can search and add content to videos from YouTube, Khan Academy, TED Talks, or a video that another teacher has created. If you do use Google Classroom, then you can link your class to EdPuzzle. You can search for a range of different videos on whatever topic you would like, and there are some that are actually already available for you to use that have been created by others. You can add multiple choice questions to certain parts of the video, or you can add open-ended questions or use that option for discussion boxes to elicit the learner's current thinking. Or you could add voiceovers or post-it notes to sections of these videos. Furthermore, you can also edit the videos by cutting or trimming certain parts of the video. And when you are finished with editing your video, you can then assign it to your learners, and you can even prevent the learners from skipping through parts of the video. This way, you can be assured that they have watched the full video. You can check their progress in real time while they learn at their own pace. However, please do note though that initially this may be time consuming to create and set up the videos, but once you have set them up, they are available for future use. FlipGrid is a free social video discussion platform. It's simple and makes learning fun, fulfilling, and empowering. Also, if you're using Google Classroom, you can now sync up to 500 learners from your classroom list with FlipGrid to grant your learners direct access to FlipGrid discussions, and there is no email domains or usernames required. On this website, you would post your discussion topic, and you can then include specific details. You can add links to other websites, include videos and links to forms, etc. You can then share the discussion topic with your learners by either having your classes set up, or you can make the discussion topic public, where a join code would be required to access it. Learners would then reply with a video, and there are a host of options available on the website, just like there are with things like Instagram, TikTok, and so on, to make it more exciting. You can then provide feedback to the learners either by a video yourself or via a text comment, and you can include grading criteria as well, such as the Rubrics. Finally, you can also search for some pre-made topics as well as get some ideas of things that you could do, or you could just use some of the ready-made ones and assign them to your learners. It might be worth remembering that the advisory age limit for these social platforms is 13. The website MentiMeter.com is an interactive and online presentation software program, and it's free, but there are some limitations with the free version. MentiMeter can be used in real-time classwork and live remote lessons. The interactive element allows questions to be submitted, quizzes to be taken, and much more. You can make an unlimited number of presentations, but in a single presentation there is a maximum of 2 questions and a maximum of 5 quizzes per presentation. The questions can be submitted anonymously, and there is also a profanity filter. Microsoft also has an add-in that allows you to insert MentiMeter slides into your presentation. MentiMeter can be used for external assessment revision and/or quick recap or review quizzes, or even have a quiz ready for your learners to complete as an entry or starter activity. Kahoot is a game-based learning platform that makes it easy to create, share, and play learning games or trivia quizzes in minutes in the classrooms and at home. You can create a fun learning game in minutes, and these are called Kahoots. The format and number of questions is up to you. You can also add videos, images and diagrams to your questions to increase engagement. Kahoots are best played in a group setting, and to join a game you need a unique PIN. If you're the game host, i.e. the teacher, you will need a big screen, and then players, i.e. the learners, can answer on their own devices such as mobile phones while questions are displayed on the shared screen. In addition to live games, you can also send Kahoot challenges that players complete at their own pace, for example for homework or remote learning. After a game, you could encourage players to create and share their own Kahoots as part of their revision plan. Instructions on how to create Kahoots on your computer or in the app, as well as playing a live Kahoot, are available on the website. Quizlet is another good revision tool and includes digital flashcards, matching games, practice electronic assessment, and live quizzes similar to Kahoot, as well as the new expert explanations. There are study sets created by teachers, lecturers, and other learners, or you can easily create your own. Learners can revise at home, school, or on the go with the mobile app and can choose which of Quizlet's 7 different study modes which works best with their style of learning. It can also be used for whole class participation. Quizlet also tracks their progress and provides instant feedback about where to focus. And finally, Hot Potatoes is another tool that can be used, which enables you to create interactive, multiple choice, short answer, jumbled sentence, crossword, matching, ordering, and gap fill exercises. So as we've reached the end of the webinar, I'd just like to thank you for your time today, and I hope you found it useful. As mentioned earlier, if you have asked any questions via the question box, I will respond in a timely manner after the webinar. Also, please do feel free to add any strategies that you use and find effective that I've not mentioned today. If from the webinar you do have further questions, then please do feel free to get in touch with me directly using my email, kellyjohnson@ncfe.org.uk, or if I'm unavailable, our general email is provider.development@ncfe.org.uk, and please do visit ncfe.org.uk/vCert for more information on our vCert Technical Awards. And finally, as mentioned earlier, I have also included some of the useful references for you to refer to if you require further information and support. At this point, please do feel free to leave the webinar, and I'd really appreciate if you could complete the evaluation, the short evaluation that will pop up at the end to help us improve our service and the support we offer. Thanks again, everyone, for attending the webinar today, and on behalf of everyone here at NCFE, we wish you a safe and successful year.